La Repubblica has been quite active lately in regards to the Milan universe. It was reported that the draw against Salernitana gave the management a lot of doubts regarding the future of Mr. Pioli, and suggested a list of names that could possibly replace the current coach. But the one that caught my attention the most is none other than Antonio Conte. And La Repubblica reported that the man behind sponsoring Antonio Conte to Milan is none other than Ibrahimovic. Now, to me, this makes complete sense, because Ibrahimovic is a winner. He knows what it takes to win, and he understands that in order to win, you need winning mentality. And Conte is the perfect man for the job. But the question remains, is Conte the perfect coach for Milan? Now, in my opinion, Conte's football style does not really represent Milan's DNA, which has been built on playing a positive, offensive type of football. The late Berlusconi used to say that Milan needs to win trophies by entertaining the crowd. He was a big admirer of the beautiful game, and that philosophy was the driving force behind Berlusconi's Milan. Now, speaking about more pragmatic styles of football, Milan has also had success with coaches that do interpret a more defensive approach. As a matter of fact, the first Milan coach to win the European Champions League was Nereo Rocco. Nereo Rocco was known for being a defensive coach, one of the first coaches to propose the idea of catenaccio. Milan, under Nereo Rocco, won the Champions League, which at the time was called the European Cup, in '63 against Eusebio's Benfica, and in '69 against Johan Cruyff's Ajax. Then, of course, in the 90s, we had Fabio Capello, who was known more for being a disciplinarian and a more pragmatic coach, who won the Scudetto with Milan in '92, which, by the way, was unbeaten the whole season. Capello also won the Scudetto in '93, '94, in which Milan held the record of least goals conceded in Serie A, which then was beaten by Antonio Conte with Juventus. Then, of course, we cannot forget the '94 final of the Champions League against Barcelona, where Milan thrashed Barcelona 4-0. The next coach with the more pragmatic, defensive-minded footballing philosophy that won a trophy with AC Milan was then Allegri in the 2011 season. So in the end, when we put all the cards on the table and we analyze the history of Milan, we must come to the conclusion that defensive coaches have brought success to AC Milan. So this brings us back to Antonio Conte. And the reason why I believe Antonio Conte is the best man for the job is not because necessarily of his style of football, but because of his mentality. Something that right now the ownership lacks and does not have the ability to transmit to the team. So how to mitigate this problem? By installing personalities in the sporting area that fill the void that the management can't satisfy. Milan can't simply take the risk of gambling with up-and-coming coaches with no pedigree. This team needs a disciplinarian. This team needs someone to keep our young players in check. This team needs someone to fill the void that the management cannot fill. So lastly, the question remains, does this management have the ability to work with someone like Conte? Conte, who has a very strong personality, very demanding. He likes to have confrontations, doesn't take no for an answer. How will that work with a management that can't handle personalities like Maldini? I believe Conte is probably much more difficult than Maldini. So will that mean that we will always have to be stuck with coaches that don't have super strong personalities, that are always yes men, that are coaches that work for the corporation rather than work for the sport? And if that will be the case, then I really think that Milan will have a lot of difficult years ahead. And this is why I really believe that Conte is the man for the job. He will bring a more pragmatic style of football, but also he will put 11 lions on the pitch that will fight for every ball and fight for every result. And lastly, defense wins you championships. Right now, Inter on the verge of winning their second star before we do, in the year Maldini was fired and thrown onto the streets like a stray dog. We need Antonio Conte not only to defend our goalpost, which, by the way, AC Milan in the 2023 calendar year was one of the teams that conceded the most goals out of the current Serie A teams that are fighting for European positions and mid-table spots. But we also need Antonio Conte to defend our history, to defend our pedigree, to defend our colors, to defend what we represent in football, to uphold the name AC Milan and keep it high up there amongst the Olympus of football. So in case Pioli does get sacked, let me know in the comments who you think the new AC Milan coach should be. Let me know why. And if it is an upcoming coach that you would like to see replace Pioli, let me know why you think that coach would have the ability to turn Milan around and make it a juggernaut, not only in Italy, but in Europe.